Hey everybody, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1, as always. Hope you're having a good week. Been a good one for me and mine. Did some decorating for the holidays this week and knocked out some project. Good stuff, progress. You know, I find sometimes that I'm just completely overwhelmed with what I have in front of me to take care of. You know, lots of things that need to get done and not enough time to do it in. I think you all probably can relate to that. You know, you have to stop and come back from the edge a bit to get a grasp around what's the most important thing. Figure out what that one thing is and get it done. And then you figure out what the next most important thing is, and you do that, and so on and so on. And eventually you will just completely lose interest in doing all this crap and go back to reading books or watching videos or YouTube or whatever, you know. But, you know, I kid, of course. Eventually, you get the pile work down to something that's a bit more manageable, and you feel like you've actually accomplished something. And maybe that is a philosophy that needs to be implored in our bigger picture lives to sort out this whole shitbag world that we're living in. It's that time of year again where we kind of take appraisal of how things are going and, you know, where we're headed and whatnot. And it's not looking too good, honestly. There are so many things going on in so many places where we need changes and fixes and problem solving, and it's just too big of an elephant to eat, or at least it seems that way. It's completely clear that the politicians are both incapable and unwilling to do anything in Congress. Judges are almost exclusively on the side of anti-Americanism, and it has become almost impossible to change that. Getting the right person into position in the judiciary is just fought tooth and nail by these antis, and since they're the ones sitting on the bench, they rule against those trying to replace the horrible people. Trump's people in the DOJ are so incapable that it can't be real that they're that incapable. Okay, he has failed utterly to fix that office. There's been some changes, don't get me wrong, but overall it's a failure because those changes might have taken place, but it's not producing different results. The people that he put into place are there to protect the establishment at all costs, regardless of how stupid it makes them look. They're ham-handed and they can't follow basic procedure when it conveniently gives the antis the legal basis to reject appointments and indictments that have been put into motion. We see again today, Letitia James has failed to be indicted yet again. This is the second time at it. You only get so many times to try to indict somebody, and then you have to step away from it. How in the world can they keep failing at this? The first time was dismissed because, this person wasn't legally appointed as the prosecutor. What? It's nonsense. These things that should have been known, should have been taken into account. Don't move unless you have to. Don't move unless you've got all your ducks in a row. Why were your ducks not in a row so close to the statute of limitations? Well, it's simple. That was done as a show. There was no intent to really make that happen. Every time ICE makes progress, we see a judge step in to counter that progress and order people released, put back out on the street. It was reported that 2.5 million people have been deported since Trump took office, which is great, but it's still about 15 million less than needs to be deported, so we still got a long way to go. We have these the Somalis in Minneapolis, where it was reported that almost every single Somali family with children are living on welfare. The corruption surrounding these people and their organizations, as well as Tim Walz's government, has resulted in billions of taxpayer dollars finding their way into the hands of these scammers, as well as terrorists back in Somalia. There's terrorist groups there, and this money is flowing back to them. And no one in higher levels seems to think that this is a problem, although Trump did deliver some rather humorous remarks about the Somalis and their presence in Minneapolis, Minnesota in general. And ICE has been dispatched there. They are making some arrests, but, again, it's not... Is it really enough to make a significant difference? It's just started, so maybe in a month or two we can say, yeah, there's been some progress there, but do you really think tens of thousands of people are going to get arrested and deported? I don't. I have no confidence in anything significant will be done about that. It's very daunting. It's very overwhelming to think that this is the current state of the country, and how in the world can we fix even part of this over the next 3 years, especially when the Dems take power in Congress, because make no mistake, they will be in power, at least in the House, and will be subjected to an endless stream of impeachment hearings and investigations and bullshit. And it's already started. We have this Indian congressman who's like 80 years old, but he doesn't look 80 years old because he dyes his hair and he paints on his eyebrows like some meemaw down in Florida. This guy, who should not even be allowed in the country, much less be a sitting member of our government, this clown has filed impeachment articles against Pete Hegseth because of the drug boat strikes. And Al Green is going to file another article of impeachment against President Trump just because he wants to, I guess. Reasons. Because Al Green... And it'll just keep coming, to try and build this political manna that will justify the magical mystery that is our modern election system these days, where votes appear and seemingly disappear for no real reason at odd times in the night without any explanation that, we don't have to explain that. Now, speaking of that, I want you to go watch a video from Mike Benz about the J6 pipe bomber and where he thinks that operation was planned. And I linked to it over on Gab yesterday. It's rather informative, and let's be perfectly clear here. This is not speculation based on mysterious insiders who've given covert information to Mike Benz. And no. This is him reading between the lines of a report, and sometimes just reading the actual report itself, that this was published by the people who, quote, fortified the 2020 election. He's looking at their own words and their own actions, and he's showing you that the case against this pipe bomber lines up perfectly with the meetings and the war games that this cabal of commies had taking place in early 2020. This group of people, I guess that was actually 2019 maybe, prior to the election. I could be off on the year there, but at any rate, it was prior to the election when these people were meeting to plan out and war game their options. And this group of people admit to planning to use BLM to foment revolution. They lay out this classic color revolution on paper, and they're boasting of this. They're proud of what they did to prevent Trump from being reelected in 2020. And I want you to take note of something in that video when he details who attended these planning meetings and war games. He says dozens of military officers were in attendance. Now, there's no names given of who these people were, these military officials. But there's a question that comes out of that. Who were these officers? If you had active duty military officers attending a planning session that discussed removing a legally elected president from office, that is treason and sedition. Those people, if nobody else out there pays a price for this, those people should be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of military justice. That is inexcusable. That is a coup. And just so you are aware, these war games that Benz is talking about, they were not planning contingencies just for Biden winning and Trump refusing to leave office. That's not what they were planning. They were planning the full spectrum. They were planning for the event that Trump won the election They were planning that if Trump won the electoral vote, which means he's the legally elected president, that's how our system works, but he lost the popular vote, they were planning to mobilize and put into action plans that would remove Trump from office. And those plans, those actions included military action. That's a de facto coup. They were planning a coup. I want you to really absorb this, because I watched this video the other day, and I was aware of this report. I had heard this report mentioned before and talked about, and I can't remember exactly when it was published. I'd have to go back and look that up. It was been out there. It's been out there for a little bit. But I'd never bothered to look into it and really see the dirty details. Because in my gut, I knew that they had done this. It was obvious to anyone who pays the slightest bit of attention that all of these actions surrounding the 2020 election and the Biden administration, the full administration, all of it, all of these things had been thought out in advance. They had contingencies in place for certain things that were going to take place, how they wanted this to kind of flow out, and not to their complete conclusion. Okay, these people are not, that prescient. They can't see that far down the road and interpret everything that might possibly happen. But they put in these options. They have these plans. They think things out in advance. So it's clear that those things were taking place. But so I didn't really feel like I needed to really see all of that spelled out in this report. But watching Ben's lay it out and how it closely ties with the timeline of the phony pipe bomber and the J6 day and all of this, it just struck a chord with me, and it really pissed me off. I've been over the whole 2020 election for a long time. It just, you just get consigned to the fact that we will never likely see real justice for that. But this brought all that back to the plate, and it just made me all pissed off again. And I can't say for sure that we'll get a full accounting of everything, and I can't say that I have any expectation that anything will be done about them. But if we can get something done, some little bit of progress, one little bite of the elephant here, I think it'd go a long way towards restoring some confidence in the process, at least. Maybe it's too much to ask. Well, I know it's too much to ask Congress to do anything. But perhaps it's time for a different route. Bear with me here for a little bit. I want you to go back and remember something from a long time ago. Do you remember those old-fashioned documentaries that were done, the mock trials? These old programs where they put the Kennedy assassination on trial in a mock courtroom on film. Maybe something like that, where you bring in a random group of people and sit them as a jury. And you get some legal teams involved. Someone to represent the people and someone to represent, the defendants in this case. And you present the case. Witnesses can be called. Everything can just be laid out there in full. The full theory of this is how we believe this went down. This constitutes treason. At least at a minimum, it's sedition. Here's the case. Treat it like a real trial with a jury and a judge and everything. And if those jurors can be persuaded, then like a grand jury, they can hand down an indictment. And it's not a real indictment. It's not an indictment that's going to have any power. But it would stand to reason that if someone could lay out a clear theory of the case and using mostly their own words and materials to convict them, and do this to an impartial group of people, well, maybe some prosecutor would have the balls to try to take up the case for real. I don't know. I just had that thought. I thought, we've got to have something here. Something's got to get done. We need a win. We need some kind of evidence that progress is being made, because right now it really just looks like Trump 2.0 is just a bill of goods, and nothing is really getting done. It's all show, it's all kayfabe, and there's really nothing taking place in the background. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe you guys are a little more optimistic about it than I am. Your mileage may vary, but I'm just not impressed. I need to see something for a win, something that builds momentum, something that shows that there is real progress taking place. Lots of little things, lots of little items that come out in the news and they get blown out of proportion. And then we've got all these distractions going on. Erica Kirk and Candace Owens are fighting. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit about that? I could care less about that. Just absolute garbage. Just total distraction. I don't know. That is all we have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the new mothership. And I will see you on the next episode.